We're off to outer space. We're leaving Mother Earth to save the human race. Our Star Blazers.
The first technical gripe I have is that the image fidelity isn't particularly consistent. With some shots it looks pretty good, yeah it has a little bit of age, but the colors are still vibrant and the image is still in focus. But then we have other points where you can tell it's really been decayed to the point where the image is out of focus and the colors are almost completely faded. Now, again, they probably didn't have access to really high quality versions of the episodes when they were doing the transfers, but a little consistency is all I'm asking for. As for the voice acting, we have almost a reversal of the previous episode here, as Wyldstarr, Venture, and Nova actually sounded pretty good by 1970s standards. But with Captain Avatar, on the other hand, the performance here was a little bit lacking. As a captain who's giving orders, there wasn't a real sense of urgency in his voice. And there were also a few times where you can tell he was trying to stay absolutely in sync with the episode, but you could tell he was having trouble keeping up because there were just too many lines of dialogue. And really, that just comes from the fact that with Japanese, there are certain phrases and idioms that may take up an entire sentence here in the US, but in Japanese only comprise one or two words. And that's really what it looks like may have happened with Captain Avatar's lines, which is why he probably had to speak them so fast and couldn't really perform them really well, is that when they were translated and were probably in the original Japanese, it was probably like 1, 2 words, maybe 3 tops, but then they had to be translated out to full sentences in English, making it a little bit hard for the voice actor to deliver the lines convincingly and still be in sync with the mouth flaps. As for the overall tone of the episode, it's a little bit more consistent here. I mean, yeah, it starts out with a little bit of comedy with the antics of the robot, but then it pretty much mostly sticks to mystery as our main characters approach the Yamato, and then action as we move into the battle scene against the Gamelon fighters and the Battleship. Now, before people correct me, technically by this point in the series, it has not been rechristened as the Argo yet, and they're still referring it as the Yamato in the episode. I'm just making that clear, that way people are like, oh, but it's called the Argo and Star Blazers. It hasn't been rechristened yet. There's only one problem story-wise that I noticed, and that was the fact that they didn't quite establish whether or not the full crew was on the Yamato yet or not. I mean, when Wyldstarr and Venture first come to the ship, they make it appear as if it's only Wyldstarr, Venture, and Captain Avatar, and then later Nova are on the ship. But then when you have the battle with the Gamelon fighters and the Battleship, they make it sound like there's like a full crew of people there already on the ship, monitoring everything, and then basically sending that information to Captain Avatar as they're basically fending them off. Maybe it was something I missed, or maybe it was just the result of some poor editing choices, but I can't really say for certain. It was a little bit confusing. Another problem I noticed is how Captain Avatar kept talking to Wyldstarr and Venture as if they were just reckless cadets itching for battle, even though that only really happened for one particular scene where they were talking about fighting with the Gamelons. But by the point of the battle being over, he didn't really need to be addressing them as if they were just itching and ready to go, because he had already briefed them on the mission that they were heading to Iskandar. And so really, it just felt a little out of place, where, yeah, at the beginning it made sense where there's like, oh, are we going to be fighting the Gamelons on this ship? And then him saying, well, yeah, we'll be fighting them, but that's not our mission. But then after he's already briefed them on the mission, and after their initial battle with the Gamelons, him still kind of lecturing them about not being reckless just didn't make a whole lot of sense, in my opinion. That said, this episode does give you a better idea of what to expect from the show. We get the action from their battle with the Gamelon ships. We get a brief look at Lord Deathlock, who is the main antagonist of the show and the head of the Gamelon Empire. Personally, I kind of prefer the name Dessler, but it's 70s standards. They probably thought it sounded cooler as Deathlock as opposed to Dessler, but I digress. This is also the episode where we're introduced to the ominous countdown. This is where at the end of each episode they say, oh, there's only 364 days left for planet Earth. And it adds a real sense of urgency to their mission because they don't have a lot of time. They can't just take their merry time going all the way to Iskandar. They literally have to rush to Iskandar, get the Cosmo DNA, and rush all the way back to Earth in order to make sure that humanity isn't wiped out. And the countdown basically constantly reminds you of they're on a ticking clock. And that's another thing I really like. It just makes it clear of, yeah, this isn't just a fun space adventure. This is serious. And that's what I really like about the show so far. But that's all I really have to say about episode 2 of Star Blazers. Only 24 episodes remain in season 1.